Hey everybody, Harrison here, and I'm joined today by one of my favorite Incubator members. I shouldn't say that because they're all my favorites. But I'm joined by Don, and Don has such an incredible story, and I want him to share it with you all. But Don is a full-time high school band director who after joining the Incubator, was able to take this skill that he had of fundraising and turn that into a business where he was able to contract $10,000 in new business from zero in less than 60 days. And I want to tell that story because I want everyone watching this to see that one of the things I've been talking a lot about is taking the skill that you already have that you might perform at your full-time job and understanding that that skill is valuable in other ways, in other applications. And Don's a perfect example of that. So I'll let Don, you introduce yourself, tell people anything you want to know, you want them to know about you, and then we'll get into your story and how you did this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Harrison. I love being here and being in the position that I am today, which is of course thanks to you with everything that you've helped with there. So as you said, I'm a high school band director. I've been doing that for roughly 17 or 18 years. And I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit to me, but it wasn't anything I was able to replicate. So I would have some success. I would teach private lessons on the side for some cash. And then I went into the space of writing some books and doing some, freelance work that way and doing some speeches. And that was really good money every once in a while. But I wasn't able to figure out, how is this actually working? How can I keep this going on? And it felt like that success was just a little bit of a mistake sometimes. So yeah, and personally, I have 6 children, and that was kind of where we connected online, LinkedIn. Saw a lot of your content there. So there was that personal thing of wanting to make something work. I love my job, but I also like freedom as well. And it was also thinking about my family's future there. So that's who I am. Somebody right now that's trying to make my world a little bit better than I found it.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
And you're also doing great things for yourself and for your family. I mean, 10,000 sales in sales in 2 months with really there was no offer before we cooked it up, and there was no business. It was the salary that you had at the job. And so that's really incredibly gratifying to me. So tell me a little bit about what, I know you had been dipping your toes in social media as well.
Sure.
Had a nice following on LinkedIn, good content. You understood the content, but when it came to monetizing, how had you struggled before linking up with us inside the Incubator?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a guy thing or a me thing, but I know like the harder a job is, the more satisfaction there is. But like but at some point I had to stop making things so hard for myself. And that was the part of it, was I had things that I could do, but I was kind of having that new shiny object thing. I needed to look for something else to do. Or maybe I thought that wasn't going to work. And the reality was that part of it was consistency. Now musicians, like, we can grind, right? Like when I was younger, I'm a trumpet player. I practiced trumpet every single day without missing a day for like 7 or 8 years. And like, we're talking like I was in the hospital. My mom brought the mouthpiece
I didn't know that.
Right? Like I could grind like anybody there. But in terms of the challenges, it was the consistency for me. I would go really far in a project, and then I don't know if I abandoned it before it actually hit, or if it wasn't going to. But the big thing too was just being way too complex and overthinking things like you wouldn't believe. And then that would come to essentially some fear. And it's always that fear of like the posting the first time. It was the fear of telling people that aren't paying your bills what you're doing, and getting their judgment from it. So those were some significant challenges for me. And then just trying to hone in on what it was that I actually did well and could help people with.
Yeah, and that's the breakthrough that we saw with you and we see with so many guys is well, it doesn't need to be so complicated.
Yeah.
In fact, it shouldn't be, especially at the beginning. It should be as simple as possible because business is hard enough. Business is already hard. So why would we make it harder on purpose? And I hope that's one of the big things you learned in our early days working together. And then also that all of us are being paid to do something. There's some skill that we have that our employer finds valuable. And if they find it valuable, so do other people. And that's usually the best place to start when it comes to, well, I want to start a business, or I want to build a business. There's something that that you're already being paid to do that is valued enough by an employer to continue to pay you. And that's a great place to start. And that's ultimately where we got to with you. But can you get a little more specific on like the steps, strategies that we implemented with you and with the fundraising offer to get it from an idea to the 10,000 in sales in 2 months?
Yeah, I think the first part of it was because we had tried another offer before this. And we had tried an offer to help men stop fighting with their wife. And that was interesting because as soon as I put that out, I booked a client in, I think, 2 days.
Yeah, you sold some of that early on too. I remember.
Sold some of that early on and helped some people out with it. And I've got a couple people I'm still working with on that. And what it was though was making sure that there was clarity, right? Because as you were talking about things being challenging, I was trying to make it in the dad space on LinkedIn, and people loved my content and got some followers. But when it comes to the actual monetization of it, I remember speaking to you, and he's like, "You're like, what's the binary thing, or what are you getting out of this? If you pay down for your time, what is the transformation?" And if you can't explain that in 8 to 12 words or less than 10 seconds, it's hard to convince somebody else of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I kind of struggled with thinking about these things. And I think at one point you and I spoke, and you asked about what I did in my job. And I mentioned the fundraising thing, because if you're ever involved with public school groups, there's a finite amount of money in the school itself. And I'm an optimist when it comes to money. I think there's always money somewhere. But if us, like a high school band, it costs us sometimes $30,000 a year to run, and if the school gives you 10 grand, you got to figure something out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I not only had some success with that, I had some pretty big success. I raised probably in 4 years total, I've raised about 250 grand for my programs. And I remember as soon as I said that, you're like, dude, full stop. What? Right, full stop. Let's talk about this, right? So from there, it became, again, just the specific of it, right? What's the outcome and what's the time? And, so the offer I put out there was, I'll help your small group or nonprofit. And I also ran a nonprofit as well, so I had that awareness. I'll help your school group or nonprofit raise $10,000 in 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw up a quick website. I mean, I thought it was somebody in the incubator talked about this really affordable website. And again, I didn't have much money at this point. I don't know if I told you, like when I was signing up for the incubator, I knew it was going to be worth it. Like I took on extra trumpet lessons to pay for the incubator, because like there was a testimonial, there's all this stuff, and I know I'm all over the place, but it was something that paid off for me. But at that point with the fundraising thing, I put up a quick website, and the next day, I put up a Facebook post that, I'm working with groups to help them raise 10K in 90 days. Message me. And there were like, I don't know, 5 or 6 likes on it, and 2 people did the submission thing with that. And then I think within a week, I booked the first client, and that was a $2,000 contract at that point. Man. So, that's kind of the
it's incredible
version of that. But it was helpful. And to go back to the original offer of stop fighting your wife, the first person that I had, I remember I texted you. I'm like, hey, this person wants to go. And you're like, dude, he wants to give you money. Just stop talking him out of it.
Yeah.
So I've just appreciated having all of those just little details, because I think things can be simple, but man, have I really appreciated just the little details and nuances that you've been able to help me with.
Well, that's great, man. I appreciate that. And so you mentioned it was a leap of faith, which I think it is, especially a lot of our guys are getting started and maybe never invested in anything like this before. What ultimately made you decide to take the leap, and which paid off in a big way? But what was there something specific about the approach, or about something you saw with the incubator content, or what was it that made you decide that I'm gonna do this thing for real this time?
Yeah, I think there's a few things with it. And first off, I saw your content on LinkedIn. I liked it, but you never pitched me, right? I think you said hello at one point, but I never got that immediate message that was like, send me money, right? So I liked your content. I engaged with it. And then there was a testimonial I saw from Tyler Graham,
Mm-hmm.
who, I mean, I think you can read up on your thing. Like, he was ready to shut something down, worked with you, and then just skyrocketed there. So that spoke pretty highly to me. And then there was I believe it's called Simple Business now, but there was the Clients Through Social School
The
group.
school, yeah.
So I joined that, and you had, and the way I thought about like handing things out for free completely changed too. Because when I went in that, I had like a couple free things, and your stuff was, holy cow, like that was killer. And it was just some great modules. And I remember going through that, trying some things immediately. Like I devoured those things, I tried them, and they started working to at least get conversations going.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I reached out to Tyler. I'm like, hey, this is working. I kind of want to put things on the fast track. And that's where we connected. I don't know. It never felt, you were very clear with things. There was a clear outcome, and it seemed like you were like really invested in the guys that you wanted to work with. And that was, again, by all of your public stuff, and especially the private conversations there. So that's ultimately why, like I said, I kind of, as soon as we got off that call talking about the incubator thing, like I looked at my thing, my balances and stuff, and just contacted a few more schools. I'm like, hey, you got some trumpet lessons that can come in, and there we go. That's how that happened.
Well, I think I'm glad. I didn't know you were doing that. I might have tried to talk you out of it if I knew you were doing that. I mean, I knew it should be a big investment, because it needs to be real, and people need to feel some urgency. So I'm glad you took the leap of faith. It's paid off, and that makes me very, very grateful.
Yeah, and
And
I'm saying, like, because I know you've said before, like, you never want to take somebody's last dollar, from.
yeah, no, I
So
don't.
it wasn't quite there. But I mean, I'll tell you this, even too, like those lessons that I'll teach, like I still do those for fun. I've used a lot of your techniques there to like build that studio up too, just
Yep.
in terms of referrals, testimonials, and all of that stuff. So yeah, this stuff works.
Get them on a package. Get them on a pay in full. Get them on a. That's great, man. Well, I'm so grateful, and you said one thing that it means a lot to hear, that you felt like I was really invested in the success of the guys, and I do feel that way. I wish I could say it was purely altruistic, and purely it is partly that, but it's also selfish, because my success depends on you guys' success. So I take it really seriously. It's no good to me if a bunch of guys join the incubator and everybody says this thing sucks. Like,
Yeah.
what am I gonna do?
Yeah. No, and I get that, and that was part of the hump I had to get over too. And I think it's a teacher thing. Teachers just try to be martyrs sometimes, and we're like, hey, we're working this unpaid time, and if there's extra money, we're like, no, we don't need it. So that was a little bit for me that I had to get past, this thing of like, money bad, volunteer good all the time. And so at some point it became money good, volunteer good.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make an impact. Money helps you make an impact.
Absolutely.
It does. Well, I think that's it, man. What would you say to somebody who's considering joining the incubator?
I mean, I would absolutely try it out, especially in the case of if you've got, I mean, again, if you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So, if you're someone like me where it's like you've got that grind and you really want something, but you need that focus and you need that clarity, I think it's absolutely the best thing to do. I think it's also a huge time saver. Like, you're going to still make mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes with the nonprofit business so far, but they were awesome because I'd make the mistake with the first client and I was clear with them, like, this is my first thing I'm doing with you. And they were cool
Yeah,
with
you
it,
should. Yeah,
right?
that's the way we teach it.
And then the second client is like, man, it's like you've been doing this a while. Like, this came out perfect. I'm like, yeah, talk to this other guy. That's where we learned it from. Right? Um, but I think it's that thing too of, if you're kind of overthinking, if you're too complex, um, or you need some clarity, like you were super helpful to me because I had all of this stuff going all over and you were like, hey, that's great. But like this is who you are. Like, this is the, label that I'm reading on your jar right now. And this is what I think that you could do and have some success in there. So, but no, it's great. I mean, it's like, I think the big thing with it too is that you're never going to be lost. You're never going to tell yourself or ask yourself, "Oh my gosh, what do I do next?" Because trying to figure out that next step is an insane energy and time suck sometimes. So to be somewhere and go, "This is what I'm doing next." And this is what I could have done better, and this is what I'm going to do in the future, and this is what I'm going to keep. Like, man, that's like worth every penny.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, that's the way I like to think about it. It's if you know what to do and you know how to do it, and we build in ways to make sure guys are taking the actions, then you can't lose.
Yeah.
And you'll win way faster. And the other thing you said that I really liked is the the speed is such an emphasis for me. And getting those, of course, there's going to be mistakes. Nobody's ever done anything flawlessly. What is it? The stat, like Hall of Fame in Major League Baseball, you only get a hit a third of the time.
Yeah.
And you're one of the best ever. So it's just to put it out of your mind that this thing is just going to work perfectly every time, every single time from the beginning. There's mistakes are a requirement. So why wouldn't you work as hard as you can to get those behind you, get those out of the way, because then you've learned something. And like you were saying, Don, by your second guy, you were so dialed in. But you could have thought about it and perfected it and tried to make it perfect without really knowing what was going to matter and what wasn't going to matter, and then never even gotten that first client.
Yeah.
To make that mistake, to iterate and to make it better and to improve. And that's really gratifying for me to hear too, that you took that away from it.
No, that part was awesome. And yeah, to that point, like, you're not going to learn about any of this stuff until you start doing it. I mean, I'll tell you now, like, my working with school groups, nonprofits, small groups, you're not always convincing just the person that runs the group. Like, there's a board involved as well. So my first couple consults, they were taking, I don't know, a little bit of time. Like, someone would say, hey, yeah, I'm doing this, but it would still have to do the approval and everything. So once I kind of realized that, it was great. I mean, we just cut down on the time like you wouldn't believe. Where there would be like the initial call, and then we would just schedule something, do a little bam fam, book a meeting from a meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Schedule something immediately then with the decision makers, within the week. And that just helped everything run a lot smoother.
There you go. Well, thank you, Don. We'll stop it here. What a success story. I'm grateful to know you, man. And anybody watching this, go check out Don on LinkedIn. He's I need to go check out your most recent content, because I think I see it. I need to go see what I hadn't checked you out in a few days, but I need to go see what you've been up to. But I appreciate you, man, as always. And I'll see you inside the incubator.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Harrison.
All right.